Hello and welcome to our video on fractions of amounts. It's part of our functional skills maths course at levels 1 and 2. The learning outcome we're looking at is find fractions of whole number quantities or measures. So our linked learning links our multiplication using the word of. And when we covered the basics of multiplying, we said one of the most popular ways to get you to multiply was the use of the word of. So a half of 40 is getting you to multiply a half by 40. So fractions of amounts, so a quarter of 100, is asking us to do the maths problem of 1/4 times 100. Now, how do you do this? And there's actually a very nice, easy, straightforward method for non-calculator methods. If you've got a calculator, it's dead straightforward. We're just going to put it in the calculator. However, if you haven't got a calculator, there's a very simple method to do this. So if I have a quarter of 100, the trick is to take the denominator from your fraction here and actually do this first. So 100 divided by 4 gives me 25. And then multiply your numerator by whatever the result of this division is. So a quarter of 100 is 25, which I'm hoping a lot of you knew anyway. So it's just to show you the process. So let's show you this with a couple of more fractions so you can get used to this fraction of an amount system. So if you had to find 2/5 of 25, then you wouldn't divide the 2 by the 5 first. The trick is to do this. Divide the 25 by the 5, which goes in 5 times, and then multiply the numerator by the result of the division. So 2/5 of 25 is 10. And what you'll find is in the non-calculator paper that this denominator goes into this whole number a nice round number of times. So here, 3/7 of 56. So we do that first. So 56 divided by 7. Knowing your 7 times table, it goes 8 times. And then multiply it by the numerator that you haven't done anything with. So 3 times 8 is 24. So 3/7 of 56 is 24. And it's as straightforward as that. So have a go at these easier and harder fractions of an amount and make sure you can come up with the correct answers. And as always, just pause the video to give yourself a bit more time before I do the big reveal. Okay, I'll go through them really quickly for you. So we don't do this, we do this. 20 divided by 4 is 5. 1 times 5 is 5. We don't do this, we do this. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 1 times 7 is 7. 1/6, do that first. 36 divided by 6 is 6. 1 times 6 gives us 6. Don't do that, do this. 200 divided by 10 is 20. 1 times 20 is 20. The only reason these questions on the right are harder is because the numerator has different numbers. So this process is exactly the same. 3/4 of 40, don't do that, do this. 40 divided by 4 is 10. 3 times 10 gives us 30. Don't do that, do this. 7/8 of 56, 7 times the 7 gives us 49. Don't do that, do this. 200 divided by 10 is 20. 7 times 20, 140. And then don't do that, do this. 4 times 4, 16. So 4/5 of 20 is 16. Can you see how straightforward fractions of amounts can be? So to provide variety in class, we do fractions of an amount using a maze where you've got to go in here and work your way to the door to get out. So a half of 12 is 6, and then a quarter of 8 is 2. 1/5 of 30 is 6, so we can either go this way or this way, so we'll check them out. 1/3 of 12 is 4, so we need to go this way. 1/8 of 64 is 8. 1/7 of 14 is 2. 1/3 of 24 is 8. 1/4 of 32 is 8. And 1/9 of 36 is 4. And that gets us out of there. The most likely way you're going to get fractions of amounts in the functional skills exam is through worded questions, where they'll give you information like this, where out of 56 students, 3/4 own a mobile phone. How many students own a mobile phone? So the question is basically saying 3/4 of 56. So in the non-calculator exam, we can just do this. And we know that 4 goes into 56 14 times. If you didn't see how I did that, just do long division to make sure you get the correct answer. 4 goes into 5 once, remainder 1. 4 goes into 16 4 times. So now 3 times 14 will give me my answer. So whichever way you would like to do this, so how many of the students own a mobile phone? 42 students. Here's another example where 3/25 of the amount collected by the National Lottery is paid to the Treasury in duty. In a month when 50 million is recorded in sales, how much money will be paid to the Treasury? So we know that it's 3/25 of the 50 million. So 3/25 of 50. Don't forget from our earlier lessons, Pete's top tip, to just leave the word millions to one side while you're doing the calculation. So now we need to do 3/25 of 50. Do the process where we take the denominator and divide the 50 by 25 to give us a nice round number of 2. 3 times 2 is 6, and then we can put the pound sign in and add the word million for our answer. So in a month, how much does it pay to the Treasury? £6 million. Now these are really common, that's why we're doing several examples on the video. So in a business employing 168 people, 3/7 of the employees are under 25. How many of the employees are over 25? And you get this a lot in functional skills, where they'll give you the information for one thing, but they want the answer to another. And there's several ways to do this. Let's have a look at both of the ways. Okay, so the first way is we need to find out what 3/7 of 168 are. So we can do 3/7 of the 168. Now, we don't do that, we do this. So we need to divide 168 by 7. 7 doesn't go into 1, carry the 1. 7 goes into 16 twice, which is 14, remainder 2. 7 goes into 28, exactly 4 times. So 168 divided by 7 is 24, and then we need to multiply 24 by 3. So you end up with 72 employees are under 25. So to get your answer, you have to take your 168 employees and take away 72. So you can do this in a number of ways. You can use the column method or chunking. So if we use chunking, I've got 168 and I take away 68, that leaves me with 100, and I need another 4 to take away to give me my 72. So it leaves you with 96 people are over 25, and that's the answer we're looking for. Let's look at this question in a slightly different way. If we know that 3/7 of the employees are under 25, then 1 take away the 3/7 leaves 4/7 that are over 25. So now, to do our maths, we can say 4/7 of the 168 are over 25. Again, the same maths as before, 168 divided by the 7 first gives us our 24. 4 times 24, 4 gives us 96. So you can go straight to the answer. So there are several ways for answering this question. Either way is correct, or if you came up with your own way, that is also correct. So we're now getting into the realms in maths of doing things in lots of different ways as our knowledge builds. None of them are wrong, providing your process makes sense. Now we're going to take a look at fractions of an amount in calculations. And sometimes you'll have a fraction as part of a bigger problem in maths. So like we did with BIDMAS, you could have 4 times 2/3 times 12. So instead of just having a fraction of 12, you've got another calculation in there as well. So what can you do when you have a fraction in these bigger calculations? Well, nothing changes really. The thing doing the dividing can divide any of the numbers within this problem. So we can say 12 divided by 3. So they cancel each other out. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So it becomes 4 times 2, which is 8. 8 times 4, which is 32. So when you do these sorts of problems, you're looking for your denominator to divide nicely into one of the other numbers. And here I could see 3 divides into 12 quite nicely. I don't want to divide the 3 into the 2 or the 3 into the 4. Another way of doing it is just multiply 4 and 2 and 12 and then divide the whole thing by the 3 if you want to. So let's look at a more complicated example of this. So here we have 3 times 20 over 7 times 14 squared. Now, we know when we do BIDMAS, the 14 squared is the thing we do first. So we can say 3 times 20 over 7 times, and we can write this out in longhand. 14 times 14. That's all 14 squared means. Now, when we look at it with our denominator of 7, I can see 7 divides into 14 quite nicely. It goes in twice, so it kind of gets rid of it. So now we've got 3 times 20, which is 60, times 2, which is 120, and then 120 times 14 will give me my answer. So you get 1,680. So what if the number we need to multiply by a fraction is already a fraction? So multiplying fractions by fractions. So in our pictorial diagram, if I've got a quarter and I want to find a half of a quarter, what I'm doing mathematically is a half of a quarter. So I've got a quarter and I want to find a half of that quarter. I'm interested in this bit. I can see I've got 1/8. So mathematically, what are we doing? Well, when we multiply a fraction by a fraction, in other words, 1/2 of, we know means multiply, so a half of a quarter, the 1 multiplies the 1 and the 2 multiplies the 4. So to multiply fractions, you multiply the top by the top and the bottom by the bottom. It's nice and easy to remember. So it's really quick and easy. Here are some fractions to multiply. Don't forget, when you create a new fraction, you must be thinking, can I simplify? Have a go and see how you get on. How did you get on with those? If you remember back to one of our earlier fractions lessons, we divided shapes and shaded fractions of an amount. But the shapes we gave you at the time had the same number as the denominator, and all we did is we shaded in the numerator. But sometimes you could be asked for a fraction of a shape where you have to work out how many squares you need to shade in. So for example, on this rectangle, if I had to shade in a quarter of the shape, then I could either visually see that I can divide it into 4 and divide it and shade in my quarter. So I can see that there are 4 distinct equal divisions. If you wanted to do this mathematically, all you would need to do, if the shape wasn't regular, is count the number of squares and then multiply it by a quarter, because it's a quarter of the shape. So 3, 6, 9, 12. So I have 12 squares and I want to find 1/4 of the 12 squares. So don't do that, do this. So I need to shade in 3 squares. There you go. I've shaded in 1/4 of the shape. So you might end up with more complicated shapes where you're given a shape like this and it says shade in 1/3 of the shape, and you're looking at it thinking, oh, how do I do this? Well, all you need to understand is a fraction of an amount, and the amount is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. So don't do that, do this, and you need to shade in 2 of the sections to represent 1/3. We do a worksheet in class to give you practice on this, just in case it comes up in the exam, because this visually representing fractions is very popular in functional skills. And here's an example from that worksheet. So you have a rectangle that is 4 squares by 5 squares. So there are 20 squares in total. And we have to shade in 3/5 of our shape. So 3/5 of 20. Don't do that, do this, and that gives you 4, and 3 times the 4 gives you 12 squares we need to colour in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you can see that there are 5 equal divisions that way, then you can shade them in straight away. But if you're ever confused, then just use the fraction of an amount process. And that concludes the learning outcome for this video, which was to find fractions of whole number quantities or measures. There's only one real buzzword from this lesson, and that is the word of. And as we learned very early on, of means multiply. So 1/4 of 100 is 1/4 times 100. That concludes this video. If you need any more practice on any of the topics in this video, please go to Moodle for worksheets and for homework. I hope this video has been of use, and I hope you enjoyed it.